Amir, Professor of International Relations. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Cherif.
Thank you for the invitation.
Always a pleasure having you, sir. Well, Dr. Cherif, COP27 is an important space for world leaders. Several world leaders attending the conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. President Sisi has been meeting with several world leaders on the sidelines of the conference. How do you assess the significance of this great event being hosted here in Egypt and specifically in the beautiful city of Sharm el-Sheikh?
We are all, as Egyptians, very proud that this great city, Sharm el-Sheikh, is hosting this event. It's a miracle that after all these years of instability in our country, now we are living this international event, hosting all the heads of states in our country. It means that we are a secure country, a stable country. It means that the leadership of Egypt and the choice of the Egyptian people, the democratic choice, is being accepted by the whole international community. So it means simply that we are on the right track. The fact that this conference, which deals with the future of our planet, it's not the future of money or future of business or politics, is the future of the next generations and living on this planet. It means that Egypt is a part of the future in the whole calculations of the UN and other countries, that Egypt is a part, very solid part, that should take place in every decision concerning the climate change.
Right. Well, sir, as a professor of international relations, how do you view COP27 from the political perspective or the political point of view? How would it benefit Egypt's foreign relations further?
Well, it means very clearly that, as I said, the international community has recognized Egypt's path into democracy. And this is the first significant element. The second thing is that there is a trust between the heads of states coming to Egypt, a personal trust, and with President Sisi, because, as you said, they had meetings, several meetings with him. And this is very important to show to the world that we are open to host everyone. Look, for example, hostile nations, they gathered on this land in this conference. The Armenians, the Azeris from Azerbaijan, everyone came, Russian delegation and the Ukrainian delegation, there is Iranian delegation and there is a US delegation. And
there are 120 world leaders and heads of delegations attending the conference. And
this means that it's a land of peace, Egypt. So we are proud of showing the world that we can be neutral towards everyone. The Turkish delegation came to Egypt. So we have a way of dealing in diplomacy that when it concerns the future of this world, we could put aside all the differences and work together.
Yes, well, in light of the sidelines meeting conducted by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, he met with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on ways to boost German investments in Egypt. And Scholz asserted Germany is keen to support Egypt's promising measures to achieve a comprehensive development. How do you see the significance of this meeting?
It's the continuity of the relations between President Sisi and the leaders of Germany, from Angela Merkel, who signed many deals with Egypt, the reproduction of electricity with the famous company of Siemens, and also the electronic train that we are constructing now. So I think that Olaf Scholz is showing the same interest. He's on the same guidelines. He knows that Egypt is a strategic partner to his country, and that President Sisi is someone that they should work with, because he keeps his word about working with all the allies, working with all the partners. It's very important because also Germany is a very important economic country. It has a heavyweight country inside the European Union.
Yes.
And when they invest their money, they know where it's going to.
Sure.
If not going to a strong market, they won't do it. So they're working with the strong people and strong places where they can invest.
In your opinion, how does Egypt's foreign relations pave the way for economic growth?
It's an excellent question because, you know, President Sisi made all these contacts when he was democratically elected in 2013. We had very tough relations with the outside world because of many of the lies that were given by mainstream media about Egypt.
Yeah.
He went by himself. He met at the time David Cameron in London and Angela Merkel at the time and President Hollande in France at the time also. He constructed a whole net of relations. And this was a very difficult task because they had several reports against Egypt and they were not prepared to listen to us. He made extremely courageous and brave effort to defend Egypt's image and case. And of course, our foreign affairs Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry also made all these contacts with all these countries. Look, for instance, we have an excellent relations with Moscow and Washington in the same time. We are able to keep this balance, and it's very difficult, but we are up to it.
Right. Also, in light of his sideline meetings, President Sisi met with the French President Emmanuel Macron, where President Sisi asserted Egypt's aspirations to increase cooperation with France. Now, how do you see the significance of this meeting, and how does COP27 reflect Egypt's weight with regards to the region and the world?
The French are very, French policy, I mean, very preoccupied with the climate change and all these issues.
Yes.
So when President Macron comes by himself and attends this conference, he knows that when he will go back, he has to give a report to all the lobbies of the environmental lobbies there. So I think that President Sisi opened several subjects about financing the green energy projects here in Egypt. And this is very important. And France is willing to work with us on that. It costs a lot, and it's not easy to do it from scratch. But I think that also I can say that it is in the continuous relations with France. We're working in the armament, in culture, and we are also working in environment. So the whole triangle with the three bases is being constructed. I'm not surprised that Egypt is now having all this fame, especially with world leaders, because, as I always say, the only stable and strong country in the Middle East now is Egypt, and we are proud of it.
Right. Also, Macron praised Egypt's role in the stability of the Middle East. Now, in your opinion, what difference Egypt has made in the Middle East path on security and peace?
We are the front line of combating terrorism. They have seen the miracle that took place in Egypt. We are giving, until now, sacrifices on our eastern front in Sinai, defending the world, as President Sisi said, against terrorism. We have done a lot in maintaining stability in Libya. We have maintained stability in Sudan with all the turmoil. We are a very important peace partner in the Middle East between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And we all know that the coming task will be very difficult after the elections of the Israeli elections. The right wing came to power. So I think that Egypt has a huge role now in maintaining this role, especially that the superpowers are very occupied of the wars between them. So I'm optimistic because someone has to lead the Middle East, and I think that Egypt now is up to the role.
Right. So just allow me to go to this interview and from COP27 from Sharm el-Sheikh, Nile TV correspondent and Nile TV senior correspondent Tarit Hussein conducted the following interview with the Armenian president. Let's have a closer look.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. And we're still following up of the activities at COP27. We're really honored and delighted to have with us Mr. President Vahgan Khatashurian, President of Armenia. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us here at Nile TV International and the Egyptian television. It's great and a great honor to have you. Well, this COP is definitely moving from vision to implementation. And talking about your vision concerning holding this COP27 in Egypt, definitely it makes a difference.
Thank you for invitation. Դուք ճիշտ եք, ես իհարկե առաջին անգամ եմ նման միջոցառման մասնակցում,
You are right. This is the first time I'm taking part in such an event.
բայց իհարկե ես տեղյակ եմ նախորդ համաժողովների ժամանակ ինչի մասին է քննարկումներ եղել,
But I am aware about the discussions from the previous summits.
բայց այս մի անգամ COP27 որ անցկացվում է Եգիպտոսում, առանձնանում է նրանով, որ ավելի շատ խոսում ենք մենք կոնկրետ իրականացման ծրագրերի մասին։
But this time during COP27 in Egypt, we are more speaking about implementation.
Որովհետև բոլորս էլ քննարկումների ժամանակ գնահատում ենք, որ շատ պայմանավորվածություններ եղել են, բայց ցավոք սրտի իրականություն շատերը դա այդ պայմանավորվածությունների չի եղել։
Because during discussions we all accept that there have been a lot of agreements, but much of the agreements in reality and practice has not been realized.
Եվ ես մասնակցում եմ կլոր սեղաններից մեկին, որը կազմակերպել էր Ֆրանսիայի նախագահ հարգելի պարոն Մակրոնը։
I was participating in one of the roundtables which was organized by the President of France, Mr. Macron.
Այնտեղ հենց խոսակցությունը դրա մասին էր։
This is exactly what we were speaking about during the roundtable.
Եվ բոլորը միաբերան ասում են, որ եթե մենք չկարողանանք այդ մեր պայմանավորվածությունները կատարենք, հետագայում խնդիրներն ավելի բարդանալու են։
Everyone was saying that if we are not able to fulfill our agreements, in the future the problems will become even more complicated.
Եվ այդ հարց բարձրացնողները հիմնականում զարգացող երկրներն էին։
And this issue was raised mostly by developing countries
Որոնք ֆինանսական միջոցների կարիք ունեն,
who need financial resources,
որտեղ COVID-ից հետո այդ խնդիրները շատ ավելի բարդացել են։
because after COVID these issues have become even more complicated.
Նրանք հենց դրա մասին են խոսում, որ իրենք ֆինանսական հնարավորություններ չունեն իրենց պարտավորությունները կատարելու։
And this is exactly what they were saying, that they don't have the financial means to
Այդ
fulfill
առումով
their obligations.
իսկապես իմպլեմենտացիայի խնդիրը այս քննարկումներում ամենակարևորն էր։
In this regard, of course, the issue of implementation was the most important during these discussions.
Եվ
Yes.
կարելի է հենց այդ գիծը քաշել, միգուցե,
And we should maybe draw this line,
որ
probably.
Եգիպտոսում անցկացվող այս միջոցառումը հենց առանձնանում է նրանով, որ մարդիկ ուզում են իրենց հետաքրող հարցերի պատասխանը ստանալ, արդյոք պատրաստ ենք մենք շարունակել մեր պարտավորությունները կատարել, թե ոչ։
That this event in Egypt was unique because people wanted to get answers to their questions whether or not we are ready to continue fulfilling our obligations or not.
Yes, it's a great achievement, Mr. President, for Egypt to have COP27 in Egyptian soil. And as His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, in his opening remarks, has said that we are drawing here the roadmap for the future, for the coming generations. So it's high time to work together. And it is this sense of togetherness that is going to make the difference. How are you as world leaders going to follow up on the recommendations of COP27 later?
Տեսեք, ինչու Եգիպտոսը ինչով է նաև կարևորվում այս առումով,
One thing that Egypt is important in this regard is that
այս միջոցառումը անցկացնում է փաստորեն Աֆրիկայում։
this event is being held, in fact, in Africa.
Եվ շատ աֆրիկական երկրներ տարբեր խնդիրների առջև են կանգնած,
And many African countries face different issues.
եւ այս առումով հենց այդ մեսիջն է երևի կարևոր, նաև որ հենց Եգիպտոսում է անցկացվում,
And maybe it was an important message to hold this event in Egypt
որ ավելի աշխարհը ուշադրություն դարձնի հենց աֆրիկական երկրներին
for the world
այդտեղերին։
to pay more attention to the African countries and their issues.
Եվ իրականում ես քննարկումների ժամանակ զգացի պատասխանատվություն աշխարհի երկրների ղեկավարների եւ զարգացած երկրների
And during the discussions, I felt the responsibility of the leaders of the world and the leaders of developed
իրենց
countries,
պատասխանատվության իրենց երկրների
their sense of responsibility,
որտեղ իրենք իրականում եթե նայում ենք կլիմայի փոփոխության խնդիրների
because when we look at the issues of climate change,
դրանք հիմնականում պայմանավորված են տեխնոլոգիական փոփոխություններով, արդյունաբերական հեղափոխություններով
these are more related to technological changes, industrial revolutions,
եւ սրանից ավելի շատ դրա հեղինակների հենց զարգացած երկրներն են
and responsible parties for this are mostly the developed countries.
եւ այդ առումով պատասխանատվությունն ոնց որ իրենք ավելի շատ են զգում իրենց
Therefore, they bear more responsibility in this regard.
եւ ես հասկացա որ իրենք նաեւ պատրաստ են իսկապես աջակցել զարգացող երկրներին
And I understood that they are really ready to support the developing countries,
այդ թվում նաեւ ֆինանսական միջոցներ
including providing financial measures.
եւ հենց Եգիպտոսի առանձնահատկությունը նաեւ դա էր
And it was unique for Egypt that
որ հենց զարգացող երկրները կարող են իսկապես իրենք ազատ խոսում էին դրա մասին
the developing countries were free to speak about this,
եւ սա շատ ընկալում էր գտնում բոլորիս կողմից
and it was well perceived by all of us.
կներեք որ այսպես եմ ասում սա բողոք չէր որպես ընկալում
I'm sorry for saying this. I'm not speaking about any complaints.
սա ուղղակի իրական վիճակի ներկայացում
This
է
was just a presentation of the real situation.
եւ մենք բոլորս հասկացանք որ իրականում խնդիրը շատ ավելի բարդ է քան կարելի է պատկերացնել
And we all understood that the problem is more complicated than we can imagine.
Yes, we're looking forward, Mr. President, to the recommendations of COP27 so that it is going to be a plan of action for the coming stage while we are putting our hands together. A sense of partnership and cooperation and collaboration also with Armenia in this file, regarding this file after COP.
Շատ ճիշտ եք նկատում որ իրականում նաեւ սա կարեւոր մեսեջ էր հենց որ մենք միասնաբար որպես աշխարհ ներկայացնող մարդիկ եւ երկրներ միասնաբար կարող ենք հաջողության հասնել այս կլիմայի փոփոխության
You are very
պայքարը
right. This is an important message that as the world, as countries jointly and together we can achieve results when it comes to combating climate change.
մենք ամեն մեկս մեր անելիքը ունենք
We all, each one of us have our part of the work to be
եթե
done.
մենք չենք անում դուժելու ենք բոլորս
If we don't do it, we all will suffer.
այս այնտեղը չի որ մեկը անի մեկը չանի որտեղ
This-
պետք է միասին անենք
This is not a place where one can do and the other one will not do. We all need to do together.
մեր մասնագիտական խմբերը շարունակելու են աշխատել այստեղ
Our professional groups will continue their work here.
մենք հույս ունենք եւ ակնկալում ենք որ այդ քննարկումներից հետո արդեն մեզ կներկայացվեն առաջարկություններ մեր անելիքների մասին պետությունների
We hope and expect that after these discussions we receive proposals about what we should be doing.
եւ մենք կառաջնորդվենք առաջիկա տարիներին հենց դրանցով
And for the years to come, we will be guided by those proposals.
ճիշտ է մենք ունենք հանձնառություններ
Of course, we have our commitments.
ասենք 2015 թվականի Փարիզյան կոնվենցիայի շրջանակներում Հայաստանը ունի պարտավորություններ ես համոզված եմ մնացած երկրները նույնպես
Armenia has obligations, and I'm sure other countries also have obligations under the Paris Agreement of 2015.
բայց կարծում եմ երբ այդ ամեն ինչը թարմացման կարիք է
But I think all of this needs also to be updated,
հենց իմպլեմենտացիայի առումով
especially when it comes to implementation.
եւ կարծում եմ այս մասնագիտական խմբերի աշխատանքը կօգնեն մեր երկրի ղեկավարներից մեր անելիքները ավելի ճիշտ իրականացնելու համար
And I think that the work of the professional groups will help us, the leaders of the countries, to know our work better.
Definitely, we're looking forward to that, and with this sense of togetherness among the world leaders, we will be able to achieve a difference. A final question, Mr. President, a message on your behalf from the mother of the world, Egypt, at COP27. What would you say?
Ես կարող եմ ասել որ մենք բոլորս աշխարհի քաղաքացի ենք բնակիչ ենք
I can say that we are all citizens of the world. We
եւ
live
մենք
in this world.
պարտավորություն ունենք մեր շրջակա միջավայրի նկատմամբ
We have obligations towards our environment.
եւ մենք անելիքներ ունենք
We have things to do.
եւ պետք չի սпасել որ աշխարհի ղեկավարները կամ պետության ղեկավարները դա պետք է անեն
And we shouldn't wait for leaders of the world to do it for us.
ամեն անգամ երբ որ մենք արտանում ենք մենք պարտավոր ենք մտածել մեր երկրի բնության մասին աշխարհի։
Every day that we wake up, we have to think about the world, about the environment.
Ջրային ռեսուրսների արդյունավետ ջուրը արդյունավետ օգտագործելու, էներգետիկ ռեսուրսները արդյունավետ օգտագործելու, կանաչ տարածքները ավելացնելու մասին,
Efficient use of water resources, energy resources, adding, increasing green zones,
չկեղտոտելու մասին,
not littering, not wasting.
դա դրիվ կախված է մեզնից, անձամբ մեզնից ամեն մեկից։
All of this depends on us, on
Եթե
each
մենք
one of
ամեն
us.
մեկս մեր ընտանիքում, մեր բնակարաններում, մեր աշխատանքի վայրում կարողանանք այդ պահպանել այդ մոտեցումները, հավատացեք, որ արդյունքը շատ մեծ կլինի։
If we can maintain these approaches, each one of us, in our homes, in our apartments, in our life, please be assured that the
Հայաստանի
result
օրինակը
will
ինձ
be
համար այդ
enormous.
առումով շատ ուսուցանելի է։
The example of Armenia is a very good lesson for me.
Մենք շատ դաժանորեն ենք վերաբերել մեր շրջակա միջավայրի նկատմամբ։
We have been very cruel to our environment.
Մեր կանաչ տարածքները վերացնելով բետոնապատել կամ ասֆալտապատել ենք։
We have destroyed our green space and made them concrete.
Եվ հիմա արդեն խնդիր ունենք քաղաքում,
And
Երևան
today-
մայրաքաղաքում։
Today we have an issue in the city, in Yerevan, in capital city.
Բայց մենք հիմա փոխել ենք մեր մոտեցումը։
But now we have changed our approach.
Ուղղակի մեսիջի հետևարն է, որ բոլորս ծառայենք բնությանը,
So the message is the following: for us all to serve the nature,
որտեղ մենք պարտավորություն ունենք նաև ապագա սերունդի ունենք։
because we also have an obligation for the future generation.
Ապագա սերունդին պետք է թողենք մի միջավայր, որտեղ իսկապես բոլորիս ապրելու համար պայմանները բավարար են։
We need to give the future generation an environment where the conditions will be sufficient for all of us to live in.
Yes, Mr. President, Vagan Katashurian, President of Armenia, our guest of honor here, talking to us on the sidelines of COP27 from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you
It's
very
been
much.
a real pleasure.
Yes, real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. That was His Excellency, President of Armenia, Vagan Katashurian, talking exclusively to Nile TV International and the Egyptian television on the sidelines of COP27.
Welcome back, and that was an interview conducted by Nile TV correspondent or senior correspondent Taghrit Hussein with the Armenian President Vagan Katashurian. And moving back to our discussion, and with my guest Dr. Cherif Amir, once again, Dr. Cherif, we were talking about sideline meetings conducted by President Sisi, and he also met with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, where Sunak mentioned that Egypt is one of the most important partners in the Middle East for Britain. And now, how do you see the significance of this meeting?
Well, we all know that Prime Minister Sunak is the first Indian Prime Minister of origins, of Indian origins in the British history. And so it's very important to see the fact that he's probably the person who understands very well the mentality of the East also. And this is one of his first visits outside of his country, is to Egypt. And of course, meeting with President Sisi is very important because we all know that his predecessor, Liz Truss, was in favor of the British presence in this COP27. We don't know why she was making this kind of pressure, but we're happy now it has changed. And we are happy now that Prime Minister Sunak is working with President Sisi and changed the decision that was made to boycott. Of course, our British partners know that economically we are very eager to work together, especially in the green energy also. They know that we are always present on the political issue in the Middle, all political issues in the Middle East, whether the Israeli-Arab conflict or other conflicts. So we are an important mediator and partner for Britain now in the Middle East.
Yes, and still with the sideline meetings conducted by President Sisi during COP27, President Sisi discussed on Monday with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni ways of fostering relations between Egypt and Italy. How do you see the significance of this meeting?
Well, we all know also that the Prime Minister of Italy, she's the first female Prime Minister. Also, another example of new diversity in Europe. We all know also that this is her first visit outside of Italy. She's very controversial as a person. She has many different positions, especially about foreign relations. So I think that it was a great opportunity to understand her mentality, to understand how she sees things. I think that President Sisi was able to show her that you have to work with everyone, especially in the Arab world, and not see it always as a place of threat and immigration. There is also partners, strong partners, world trusty partners, and I think that the meeting got its fruits because from what we have seen, they get along with so many subjects.
Dr. Cherif, how do you see the link between foreign relations and sustainable development?
Of course, we all know that now in our generation, politics, economics, and environment, warfare, everything is being mixed in the same, blended in the same pot. We all see now, for example, the war between Russia and the West. The oil is in this war, agriculture, also money and gas. So it's all in the same now, in the same pot. We know that if we won't show, especially for the developed countries, if we won't show our interest in climate change, we will not be able to work with these partners afterwards. But let me say something very, I think very important concerning the worries of the developed world, is that we should not give up easily to all the conditions concerning the climate change. I mean, what they're trying to pass some countries behind the scenes to undermine our industrial progress, because we also have duty towards our economies.
Yes.
If the West have built their factories, they have done enough development. Now it's our turn to, so we should not yield really to any pressure that we should restrain our economy for the climate change. Yes, we respect the climate change and we respect all the efforts and the green energy also, but we should not be fooled by any ways to tell us stop this branch of energy or industry, I mean.
Yes, President Sisi also met with the United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and they signed a very important memorandum of understanding on establishing the monitoring systems of wind farms. Now, how do you see also the significance of this meeting, and how do such world events market Egypt globally, in your opinion?
You know, the partnership between Egypt and the Emirates is like the partnership between France and Germany in Europe. We are two major partners in the Middle East. One is strong and one is willing to pay to finance stability. So I think that as we all know that Egypt is a fertile land, which is not the case in the Gulf states. So renewable energy could be used here in Egypt. We have the wind, we have the water, we have the soil, and also the manpower. So, and let's not forget that all the projects in the green energy are cost a lot. It's not cheap. So if we work together, with the financing of these projects with our friends and brothers in the Gulf states, because we know that Europe having some difficulties now economically. If we can work together, it will be a great boost to our projects. And I'm very optimistic because we all know the strong relations between President Sisi and the leadership in the Emirates, and especially Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. So it's very important that we go along in other fields other than politics also.
Yes, well, Dr. Cherif, how do all these presidential meetings reflect the importance of Egypt's role, the role that Egypt plays in discussions on climate change and other world crises, of course?
We are an important partner, and now we are telling the world that we are present on the international scene. The fact that the UN and all these leaders came to Egypt, it's a certificate to the whole world that this is a democratic country. It has its fundamental basis in diplomacy and hosting conferences. So our role is very strong. We are giving the world a new message, a message of peace. And as President Sisi said, we have to pass from all the slogans to reality. We have to work and implement.
Right. Well, and also from Sharm el-Sheikh, Nile TV senior correspondent Taglit Hussein conducted the following interview with Dr. Amr Talat, Minister of Communication. Let's have a closer look.
On the sidelines of COP27, where the activities here continue, history making in Egypt from Sharm el-Sheikh, we're really honored to have with us His Excellency Dr. Amr Talat, Minister of Communication and Information Technology. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining Nile TV.
Thank you for hosting us, for hosting me. Very pleased to be with you.
Thank you. Well, definitely information technology and digitalization are playing a key role if we're talking climate action. This COP is very distinctive because it is a COP from vision to implementation.
Indeed.
So while implementing, we really need information technology.
Right. Actually, you're a very good point, because we're working on taking actions and implementing what has been agreed upon in previous cycles of COP, and really concretizing the call of having this cycle as the implementation cycle. This stands on two different pillars. One is what concerns the ICT as a sector on its own merit, and then the cooperation of the ICT sector with other sectors in order to help and assist in also advancing the climate change topics and the emission reduction topics to an effective stage. The first issue, maybe, or the first pillar of activities has witnessed several agreements that has been forged during the conference with several multinational companies in order to better use clean energy for the operation of mobile towers, to set the standards for green data centers and implementing green data centers in Egypt, the placement of the copper internet cables with fiber data cables in order to reduce the carbon emissions and the temperature increase. Also, the management of e-waste which is a very important topic, how to rid the society of the equipment, the electronic equipment after the usage of these equipment. All these files has been under careful study before the COP. During the COP27, there has been agreements that has been signed with the major players in the industry in order to advance and achieve, I would say, substantial success on these topics. The second pillar is assisting and cooperating with other segments in environment, in industry, and in agriculture, in manufacturing, in transportation, in healthcare. All these sectors are focused on implementing environment-friendly solutions that requires the contribution of ICT in order to better manage the emissions and the temperature.
Yes, stakeholders are all here looking implementation. Definitely, since we had a solid foundation vis-a-vis communication, and Egypt took great strides also in action for digitizing Egypt under the leadership of President Sisi in the new republic. This sense of achievement definitely helped today while we are reaping the fruit here at COP.
Yes, I would say so, because during the past year we've cooperated with other entities, government agencies and ministers in order to upgrade the digital infrastructure of Sharm el-Sheikh in the preparation to get the city ready for COP in terms of expanding the network capabilities, expanding the coverage of the mobile network, the fixed broadband, upgrading the fixed broadband in all the hotels of the city in order to make sure that the experience of the visitors is successful.
Yes, definitely. Your Excellency, talking the priorities of the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology in the coming stage, while Egypt today is open up to the whole world, and we're reaping the fruit of this sense of expansion and this sense also of addressing the other.
We're working with the rest of the society, the government, the private sector, the civil society, in order to build Digital Egypt. This is the goal that we all aspire for and are working to reach. Digital Egypt encompasses different extremely important work streams, the digitalization of government services rendered to our citizens, the ability to upgrade and expand the digital infrastructure, the ability to create jobs for our citizens in the ICT sector. All these pillars and work streams we're working on simultaneously to reap the results of advancing en route to Digital Egypt.
A final question, Your Excellency, because I know your time is tight. Talking recommendations of COP, a follow-up on the mechanism of what has been discussed here is very important, working on what has been achieved. A message through Nile TV International, what would you say?
I believe the commencement of COP27 has been extremely powerful. The messages that has been sent to the world during the early days of COP27 are promising and quite powerful. We look forward to an equally powerful end of COP27 with the cooperation of the entire participants, all the countries participating in COP27 to come to come up with the effective action plans to implement what has been agreed about in previous cycles of COP.
I thank you very much, Your Excellency,
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Amr Talat,
Thank you for having me.
Minister of Communication and Information Technology, for joining Nile TV International, and congratulations
Thank you.
on all the efforts exerted.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and that was an interview conducted by Nile TV senior correspondent Tagreed Hussein from Sharm el-Sheikh with His Excellency Minister of Communication and Information Technology, Dr. Amr Talat. And back once again with my guest, Dr. Cherif Amir. Dr. Cherif, we were talking about sideline meetings conducted at COP27 by President Sisi. I would also like to tackle the African path, and how do you view COP27 in light of Egypt's comprehensive vision to support African countries?
First of all, we are the first African country to host COP and all the climate change conferences, and it's very prestigious to whole of Africa. Africa is being recognized as a place of the last resort for the forest and clean energy. Unfortunately, the Amazon in South America has suffered a lot lately by the deforestation. So we are working now in Africa, and Egypt is a leading country in introducing the clean energy in several African countries. We have constructed dams in the Congo and Tanzania. We are helping our brothers in Sudan with agriculture projects. So we are introducing that. We have also in Egypt as a country, the African continent, we have the solar energy, and we are working on these projects. So I think that the world now has to pay attention to Africa. It's not only about exploiting the riches of this continent, but everyone should work with the African countries, and it will help a lot to protect our planet.
Dr. Cherif, how do you see the significance of the shift in the volume of attention that Africa is receiving now and at the presidential level specifically since President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi took office?
Well, we have committed a huge mistake years ago, decades ago, when we neglected Africa. And I think that President Sisi understood very well since the first day in office that this is our backyard, and we have to protect our security, water security, and also political security in it. So we are working with everyone, and President Sisi is treating every country equally, whether there is problems between them or not, like Algeria and Morocco, for example. We are working with everyone on the same level, and the president is giving priority with the relations with Africa, because together we are strong, and divided we are weak.
Right. In your opinion, what difference has Egypt made in Africa's path toward development, security, peace, and specifically throughout the past years?
Well, first thing, Libya. We have prevented a huge disaster there. Disaster is done, but we have prevented a huge disaster of illegal immigration and terrorism. It could have been a failed state like Somalia, for example. No, we have protected the citizens there, and the terrorist groups are being encircled. Same thing with Sudan. We are working in keeping the balance. Tunisia, we are working with them. We are bringing peace, also negotiations between Algeria and Morocco. We are working also with our friends in the western part of Africa. And President Sisi was the first president to visit Rwanda. he went there, and we're working with our friends also in South Africa, which is a strong country and member of the BRICS. So I think that the future is Africa because of the clean energy.
Yes, well, can we say that by such international events, Egypt is attracting the world's attention, that the future is in Africa?
Of course, now everyone will ask, well, it was in Glasgow, COP26, now it's in Sharm el-Sheikh, and we're shifting from Europe to Africa. We're not even going to famous Asian cities. So that means that Africa is hosting international conferences, and now Africa is the future. Just we need the funding from all these countries.
Well, COP27 brings together those who signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and that was 30 years ago. Now, as a professor of international relations, how do you view the goals of COP27?
The goals of COP27 is very obvious now. We have to work in implementing. Before it was the ideas. And this is what President Sisi gave in his major opening speech.
Yes, from pledges to action.
To actions.
Yes.
So today is the action. COP27 is underlined by one word, action. And if we won't work together on that, well, enough was said, enough was done. Now it's time for action. And with leaders like President Sisi, we could be very optimistic that we could achieve something.
Right. Well, I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Cherif Amir, Professor of International Relations. Always a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, dear viewers, that was our coverage on the fourth day of COP27 being held in Sharm el-Sheikh. Many thanks for watching. This has been Ramzi signing off.